We're live.
The repealing the exemption for clergy to report child abuse. This discussion, if you have the document, this big document, issue statement.
Yep, I put it in the front of your folders.
Administration. And I think would take care of some of their concern, hopefully, with the discussion we just had about the ping pong.
You have it, Sarah? It's right, there it is.
So there's a list of crimes that the administration wanted to have us consider to expand the from the page 12. We've added 3 in the bill so far. And I think if you go to where the sexual assault, isn't that already on there? Domestic assault is not already on it. No.
Yeah, I don't believe it is currently 12.
Yeah, what is aggravated? So if she's, where they, I guess start on proposed changes.
So the first 12 on our list are already on here anyway, right?
Huh?
The first 12 on their list are already on here, already big 12 offenses.
Well, she's added first degree arson in number 1. They've added first degree arson as defined in 13 VSA, or second degree arson. 502 and 503. Then 2 is an assault or robbery causing bodily injury is defined. So they've gone.
Section 330, already got that. So.
Yeah, what's the difference, Eric, between murder and aggravated murder?
Aggravated murder has a number of aggravating circumstances. So there's a list of them. It could be lying in wait, use of poison, freedom to in a second here. So there's looks like there's 8 different ones that make a murder, could make a murder an aggravating murder. They committed while the defendant was in custody under sentence for a murder, so you're already in custody for a murder sentence. You've been convicted of a previous murder, committing more than 1 murder at the same time, aggravated murder. Knowingly creating a great risk of death to another person while you murder somebody.
I think that's okay to add.
I feel all right adding that.
And that one means, number 5.
Yeah.
Number 10, aggravated sexual assault of a child.
Yeah.
Did I miss the first 4? Just curious.
Well, I kind of skipped around to one
Well, it's
side.
only the underlined ones that are changing, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, well, if we follow the why don't we do the
Is there a particular one you wanted to look at? I can pull it up for you.
well, why don't we start with first degree arson as defined in section 502 and second degree arson defined as 503.
We're gonna learn about arson.
Yeah.
All right,
Arson 101.
let's do it.
So arson causing death is already in there, right? That's already one of the big 12s.
Yes.
So they're proposing that first and second degree. First degree arson. Person who willfully and maliciously sets fire to or burns or causes to be burned, or willfully and maliciously aids, counsels, or procures the burning of any dwelling house, whether occupied or vacant, or any kitchen, shop, barn, stable, or other outhouse that is a parcel thereof, obviously in the whole statute, or belonging or adjoining thereto. So that's pretty much it. It's burning, building.
My preference would be to leave that as is, arson resulting in death. Pro arson, but
Yeah,
I don't think that for me, rises to the level of adding it to the, what could become the big 30.
And second degree is even less. It's interesting. It just phrases basically any arson that's not covered by section 502 is what it says. So any arson that wasn't of the dwelling house or the building. Not sure what else that would be.
Well, it'd be like burning your neighbor's blueberry patches and whatever else,
Yeah.
you start your ditch on fire,
Right,
it spreads over to.
Right,
so,
right,
There's no value there, but it's
I
gone.
think,
right.
I
That's true.
don't think we want to add that. I just looked up stalking, aggravated stalking. I would be more inclined to add aggravated stalking than stalking. The reason is aggravated stalking is a person who commits the crime of aggravated stalking. The person intentionally stalks another person, and such conduct violates a court order that prohibits stalking and is in effect at the time of the event. Has been previously convicted of stalking or aggravated stalking. Has been previously convicted of an offense of an element of which involves an act of violence against that same person. Person being stalked is under the age of 16 or had a deadly weapon as defined in 1021 of this title in his or her possession while engaged in the act of stalking. And it's a 5-year felony, $25,000 of both. Whereas simple stalking is at that level.
Mhm.
So if we were gonna add something, it would be aggravated stalking, which you didn't learn the first time.
Mhm.
That this person,
Yeah, sounds fine.
I'm definitely open to that. I think it would be helpful once we kind of go through and then this is just for me and look at like what things we're considering to potentially hear from the network.
Yep.
And also to hear, and I don't know who it would be, but to hear someone just on the sort of young person brain science and where they're capable of.
yeah. Well, I was talking to Eric about making sure it's clear in the statutes that even if a person's charged with one of these, it's not an automatic that they can go down to family court.
Mhm,
They can be a youthful offender. And if we can direct file as youthful offender.
Okay,
So making sure that's in the, before we start adding anything. The others are already, well, I skipped over. What's assault and robbery causing mortally and bodily injury?
That,
Well, that one seems interesting to me, even just as read. So we already include assault and robbery with a dangerous weapon, but we don't include assault and robbery that actually causes injury. That seems really interesting to me. So as I look at that, the one we don't include is actually a higher level issue than the one we do include.
yeah, that's an interesting. That's maybe perhaps left over, so. Right, could well be.
I would be curious to know, like, what, is this assault or robbery that causes a scratch on my hand, or is this assault or robbery that causes broken, like, what is sort of the definition, at what point does it rise to the level of bodily injury?
So the dangerous weapon, person who being armed with a dangerous weapon assaults another person and robs, steals, or takes from his person or in his or her presence money or other property. So you assault the person while armed with a dangerous weapon and you take money or property. C, if while you're attempting to commit, so basically you cause bodily injury while you're assaulting or robbing somebody.
It's interesting, actually in B, which is what we already have, is a 15 years and not less than 1 year penalty. C, which they're proposing to add, is a 20-year and not less than 1 year penalty.
Well, and that's what I thought was really interesting. What is not
Seems like
included
it's more
seems higher,
serious.
yeah.
The C is more serious than B, at least
That's certainly how I read that.
if you look at,
That's certainly a higher prison time.
5 years more.
I wonder if Senator Rishi was right, it was an oversight,
Yeah, it could be.
because that makes sense. It does not make sense to me that we wouldn't include the higher level crime of a crime that we already
Yeah.
include.
Was there an assumption that it is included just under what's already written?
And then it says 608B.
Right. No, yeah, it's B only, as it's currently written. Only the
And I think
dangerous weapon.
I can absolutely support adding that. I mean, frankly, it's the same with murder and aggravated murder. Aggravated murder is a higher level crime that wasn't included.
So aggravated sexual assault of a child.
And that, I'll just because it's an interesting thing to keep in mind about how this works. I'm certain that the aggravated murder statute was enacted long after the Big 12 statute was enacted. So I think there were probably multiple instances of where, like every time the question to create a new crime, they didn't necessarily think, I wonder if this should be added to the Big 12. So even if the legislature had thought about it, maybe they would have, but it's just not something that I don't think was in the habit of being done.
That actually makes a lot of sense. And I know these things have shifted and changed a lot. Did we decide aggravated sexual assault of a child is an acceptable add?
I think it probably.
I would as well.
Also saying yes, that was
More recent.
enacted much more recently than the Big 12 statute.
We come back to, I'm worried about domestic assault. I think it's a serious, obviously considered very serious, but I'm worried about, can you tell me what the difference is between first and second degree aggravated assault, Eric?
domestic.
Domestic assault, yeah.
Yeah. So, so that was on now. Oh, so proposal is domestic, first degree and second degree. Okay. So domestic, just straight ahead domestic. Attempting to cause or willfully or recklessly causing bodily injury to a family or household member. Or causing the family or household member to fear imminent serious bodily injury. So either you cause injury or you intentionally cause them to fear imminent serious bodily injury. That's a misdemeanor, 18 months misdemeanor. That's your straight domestic assault. Second degree, sorry, which one's worse here?
First degree aggravated domestic assault,
Yeah.
and then there's second degree.
Yep. So first degree is if you attempt to cause or willfully or recklessly cause serious bodily injury to a family or household member. So that distinction is domestic assault, it's just bodily injury.
Mhm.
First degree, serious bodily injury. So that's that distinction. Also, first degree aggravated can be using a deadly weapon. So you either use it, attempt to use it, and threaten to use it on a household member. So that's the second way it can be first degree. And the third way it can be is first degree is if you've had a previous prior conviction. So there's three ways that it can be made first degree. Serious bodily injury instead of regular bodily injury, deadly weapons, or prior conviction.
So I have a concern here, particularly with young people who may be in a home with a lot of domestic violence and may fight back or may try to protect someone in the home, and just the cycle and circle of family violence, I feel like is much better. Like, certainly all of that stuff is very serious, and I think young people, particularly given the circumstances of being in a violent home, may be better served not with criminal charges. And there's so many nuances, and we know statistically that people who grow up in violent homes are much more likely, and so I'm pretty concerned about adding that to the list.
About adding aggravated.
Of adding domestic assault, it's first and second degree aggravated. Just when I hear the reading of that, I mean, that could be.
The court still has the opportunity to move cases up. Am I correct, Eric? If this involves a 17-year-old, it's not part of the Big 12.
Right.
Or Big 15 or whatever we want to do.
Right.
The court still has the opportunity to move a case that's particularly horrendous up to adult court or to youthful offender, right?
Yes. Yeah, there's a provision in there that allows the state's attorney to file a motion to
So,
move that court to the criminal division if they think the circumstances warrant it.
and I agree with your concerns, but my other concern is two brothers fighting. The mother calls the police.
Yeah.
Police come, make an arrest of either one or both brothers. Now they've got a domestic assault, and then you can see them quickly getting to second degree aggravated domestic assault the next time they have a fight.
Yeah.
And maybe they just don't get along.
Yeah, I think, at least in my experience, I mean, the vast majority of domestics, at least I charged it just as the domestic assault. It was pretty rare to see an aggravated domestic. And usually when there was an aggravated domestic, it was pretty gruesome. And there's also the steps of, trying to identify, the dominant aggressor. It's a 16-year-old small kid fighting against, their parent, some relative who's much bigger, started the fight, and you're taking in all these different circumstances. You're not going to focus on the 16-year-old. You're going to focus on the dominant aggressor. So, I mean, that's just my 2 cents on it.
I mean, we've seen, not necessarily in Vermont, but across the nation, issues where it didn't end up going that way, where, you know, a 16-year-old girl was in prison because she ended up killing the person who'd been sexually abusing her for years. And so I think in the instances where we're, like Senator Sears is saying, it can still be moved into the criminal division, it just doesn't start there. That's where my concern is adding it to the Big 12 or whatever number we land on.
Burglary and 12-point dwelling We did get a list, maybe I didn't.
I think we have the Big 12 list somewhere.
You gotta.
No, I meant
No.
a list of how many of the crimes have been charged.
Oh, interesting. I did not see that list.
Yes, the Justice Research Center, or the Center for Justice Research did put together that info.
Is it on the committee page?
I don't know. Do you have that, Eric?
Yep.
I don't have a copy of it right here.
It was the witness, you know.
We made a request.
So it's maybe not on the committee page, is what I'm hearing.
Should probably get copies of it because some of these are pretty rare crimes, by the way. There may be one case in the last 5 years.
I just, with all the work we've done to try and keep kids out of the criminal justice system, I want to be really deliberate about how we make it easier to do so.
But I do think,
I don't want to undo all your good work, Senator Sears.
well, I appreciate that, but I do think where we just identified there certain crimes weren't updated and they were done before the Big 12 was certainly.
Oh, absolutely,
Some of them worse than the that are already
absolutely.
in the Big 12.
Maybe can I send it to you?
Sure.
Pardon?
I'm just sending it to Vic so she can.
Oh, okay, so yeah, it's helpful to.
It's actually 2 documents in the email, so let me know when you get it, and I'll tell you which one.
Yeah.
It's the Excel spreadsheet.
It'll take me a while to get it because it has attachments,
Oh, right.
so it's gonna take a
Yeah.
while. The Excel spreadsheet here.
Yeah.
That's it. See if I can print it out. I should send it to Tony because it's gonna make a lot of noise to print it out.
What we're doing is going through the crimes that the administration has proposed, and what we find is that some of the Big 12, where they're adding to, are actually crimes that were created after the creation of the Big 12, were never included, but are actually more serious than the crime that's in the Big 12. So for example, number 2 is assault and robbery with a dangerous weapon. But assault and robbery causing bodily injury is not 12. That is because that came afterwards. And the same is true aggravated stalking, or no, excuse me, aggravated murder.
Right.
Which is more serious than, well, I mean, murder's murder.
The bigger 12.
Yeah, so decided to add those 2, and we decided to add aggravated sexual assault on a child, which is not part of the Big 12. We rejected domestic assault, noting that those cases can be taken up if the state's attorney and the court want to do that, they can go juvenile to adult.
Yeah.
And we're currently looking at documents that have to do with the number of cases in Vermont in the last 5 years of many of these crimes. But didn't we take care of number 16, carrying a dangerous or deadly weapon while committing a felony?
I think that's kind
Did
of
we
in
just
our,
change it to firearm?
and then we're looking at carving out.
Oh, it's actually that. These would all become part of the charges. I don't,
That's one of the ones that we're kind of working through in our bill.
yeah, virtually, one is already there. We have a bill on selling or dispensing a regulated drug with death resulting. Committee already that I just introduced. So.
Eric, what is the definition of dispensing a drug? Would that be just like I'm hanging out with my friends and I share a joint with them? Am I then dispensing drugs?
I believe that does encompass dispensing, yes. So the distinction is between selling, dispensing, and trafficking. As we mentioned earlier, trafficking is a much higher quantity. But I believe that the idea of dispensing is that it can be passing something along to somebody else in that sort of fashion. I think that there might be specific to the marijuana statute. I'll double check that there might be some specific exemption for that kind of conduct that you just described, especially under the new one.
Right.
Because it would need to change. But with respect to, say, a different drug, it
Okay.
could be.
Shared my mushrooms with my friend in my living room, that would be dispensing. I'll use a drug that is still illegal.
Right, right. I believe that's the case. So if there was death resulting, their proposal is to include it, if I'm reading it correctly.
Well, so I guess where I have concern particularly around the language of dispensing, both here and in our underlying bill, is that sort of criminalizes substance use disorder. If I'm there using a substance that I have substance use disorder with someone else and something terrible happens, I mean, the dispensing aspect feels really different to me than selling. Even in our like landlord section, there,
Yeah.
I noticed that it reads the same selling or dispensing. And I think maybe striking dispensing.
And that takes us back to that personal use question that we've been circling around for a couple of years. I know there was a study that was supposed to, Dick, didn't we put a study in last year on personal use?
There is one, the Sentencing Commission has, I don't believe it's been able to come up with their changes yet.
Because theoretically, that would get rid of that particular problem where you, under a certain amount, it would be charging.
I would prefer to, well, we're talking about the death resulting here.
But still, like if I have substance use disorder and me and the person I'm using with buy something that is not good, like I didn't knowing, like I'm just as much a victim of.
I'm gonna suggest we hold off on this one until we take up the bill that has to do with death resulting.
So 13,
I don't know what the bill number is,
Okay.
but if we don't take it up this year, we'll pick it up next year. Depends on our time.
but the conversation actually brings me back to the underlying, this, I'm looking at S4, which I should, no, the underlying S4, where we have the provisions holding landlords accountable. If we include dispensing in that language, I worry that we're gonna take a population that's hard to house and make it less, so a landlord now says, oh, I think you might have substance use disorder, I don't wanna house you because if you do drugs together in your home, now I might be liable. So I worry that by including dispensing and not simply sales, that we're making it harder to house a population that's actually already hard to
I
house.
know this makes it clear that my memory is horrible, but again, is dispensing above sale, Eric, or below?
Well, it's actually the same. Looks like it's phrased as selling or dispensing. And this is, I'm looking at the underlying criminal statutes now. Person knowingly and unlawfully.
Because I believe it should include sale.
Yes,
Right. And if dispensing is considered worse,
Actually, no, I'm sorry. Let me backtrack, sorry. So it didn't seem to be the way it was in cocaine. But anyway, now I'm looking at heroin. And dispensing is below sale. So,
which makes your point stronger.
mhm,
but it's odd, it also depends on the quantity. So if you just dispensed, then it's, with respect to heroin at least, the lowest penalty. It's still a felony, but just dispensing is 3 years. But then if you sell or dispense, and 200 milligrams or more, then it becomes a 10-year felony. Selling or dispensing
Well,
a gram or more, 20 years.
how about a very small amount of dispensing? What would that get you? Like below those limits?
3 years. Because it's straight
For
ahead.
any amount?
Straight ahead dispensing, it does not, it's not a term on the amount.
I'm trying to think of how somebody would, for no money or recompense, dispense enough to worry about beyond personal use.
I think they probably wouldn't.
Right, that's what I mean, like, it's hard to imagine that somebody would be in the business of just handing out drugs to other people.
I can see the possibility of, if it's someone you're in a relationship with and they're going through withdrawals and you have something left over and you share it with them. Or, you say, all right, here's $10 worth of heroin, pay me back next week or something like that. I guess that would be considered a type of sale, but
Or trying to get people hooked by getting them free
yeah.
for a while. Yeah,
Yeah, well, I just want to be really careful about criminalizing substance use disorder, because that's not to me what we're trying to get at, or making it even less palatable for landlords to house people with substance use disorder, because now they may be held liable if they have a friend over who also has these.
right.
That's kind
Well,
of,
we're talking about people here under 19 or 18. So,
yes, and I wish people under 19 or 18 didn't also have substance use disorder,
so
but we know they
why don't
do.
why don't we skip 13, 14, and 15 for the current
I feel good about that.
few minutes? Come back to those at a time when,
And then we could revisit this one.
yeah, I'd like somebody to make a case for it.
And 16, we're already dealing with in our
Right.
underlying bill.
And 17 is L&L for the child. L&L conduct, this is where Alice Nicka would tell you about the mooning in the school bus.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna regret this question, but what defines mooning in a school bus? Is that L&L?
Could be.
Okay, well, I'd like to not criminalize silly children.
Well, could be. This is where Alice would remind you that she was driving down the street. Moved around the back of the school bus.
Do you have
Which is-
legislative license plates or?
Something
I
children
think
might
so,
do.
yeah.
The other one that cracked me up about Alice was we would be talking about the Romeo and Juliet thing where you have somebody who's 18 and then they're dating somebody who's, almost 16. And so we were trying to make sure we were preventing what we didn't want, but not criminalizing a couple who were, 16 and 15 or something. And Alice was like, well, what if they work at McDonald's?
What?
Somehow it was different if they worked at McDonald's. What if they both work at McDonald's? And he's the manager and she makes the fries. And I was like, that's even worse
Because he's the manager.
like sexual harassment. But we would go round and around on the McDonald's exemption.
But yeah, actually, the mooning, it could be L&L.
I think Sarah has to go.
Yeah, I don't
At least
love,
that's what Eric told us.
But I think that.
Actually, I think it was Michelle that told us.
I think so.
Charges.
It does depend on, the jury standards of what is, offensive.
Yeah.
And it's gonna turn on the facts of a particular case, but we hope that it wouldn't get charged, but you never know.
But it could be a very serious offense as well.
but then it could be raised to criminal court. I think given the wide breadth of what this could mean, I would not feel good having it automatically in the big insert new number here. Because if it is very serious, it can be raised to criminal court. If it's a mooning, we can have diversion or whatever, a conversation.
There's the,
No, the child is different in that it actually does provide that, willfully or illegally committing any lewd or lascivious acts upon or with the body or any part of a child under the age of 16,
Right.
with the intent of arousing, appealing to, or gratifying the lust, passion, or affection.
so that wouldn't include the movie.
Correct.
No, but we're also
Yeah.
talking about youth. So what if I'm 14 and I engage with a 15-year-old in that manner?
Well,
I think, because there is a Romeo and Juliet exception, so not apply to consensual
well,
conduct.
19 and 15.
Right.
Remember, the Senate was at 13. The House didn't want to go that low, so they made it 15.
Right.
Was what we settled on. So this section shall not apply if the person is less than 19 years old and the child is at least 15 years old. I think that's when McDonald's came up. When we were doing that.
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet. So, but I think we went down to 13,
Yeah,
as I recall. And
Again, given that we're talking youth, the sort of range, like I feel like it doesn't belong as an automatic criminal charge, but if it is a situation that you're looking at going, no, this is really not okay, then it can be raised to a criminal charge.
But 2602, if you read 2602, it's pretty serious.
that's the one Eric just read, right?
Right, but we're talking about children, so children engaging with children to me is just really different than adults engaging with children.
And if it's serious, it can go.
Yeah.
to the criminal court.
Correct.
All right, so you have now, that Peggy handed out,
Mhm.
is the document that gives you the various crimes and what.
I don't know that I got that, or did I take it? Ah,
Right here.
oh, okay. Thank you.
The question we asked was how many underage.
It's on the website too.
I don't know.
That's what assault seems to be the biggest.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there's this, just assault, domestic, assault, aggravated, and then domestic assault. But you see, most of the other crimes are very.
We got two that are the same here. Somebody explain it to me here. Maybe I'm just lost.
Or, yeah, I saw that too.
27, 28, 36 are all assault domestic.
Yeah.
With different numbers
why
on
that
them.
is.
Possibly attempt, which is actually, I saw that. So.
And then it's also repeated 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them that are kind of
Okay.
11 and 12 are the same. 25 and 26 are the same. We might need
There must
some
be
more
something.
explanation on this.
Element, but I imagine it still falls under it.
So. We get that, now we're down to
Eluding a police
Just
officer.
where does this come from, this data?
trying to, serious.
Yes.
It's, Justice Center?
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to lose.
Justice Research at Norwich University.
I'm wondering if some of the missing information is due to formatting, because there's also like a randomly
Yeah.
placed,
It's on Excel.
yeah.
But I don't want to do 22, 23.
About 18.
I say no to 18,
Why would you say no to 18?
because of intent. You didn't, these are, again, these can be lifted to the criminal level, but there's no necessary intent here. It is a byproduct.
I mean, there's the recklessness standard for it. I mean, if you're in a pursuit with the police, and you're fleeing, and you should be aware of the fact that driving in that manner is, it's foreseeable that if you crash, you're going to hurt somebody or kill somebody.
Again, we're talking about children.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, my same thing still stands.
Children, as the brain science shows that kind of like forward thinking, and I mean, this is the group I work with, these 14 to 22-year-olds, they often are not thinking about the consequences of the next 5 minutes, let alone putting those complex
Okay.
thought patterns together. They're impulsive.
Binder there.
Oh, okay. There.
So I would not want to add that to the big 12. Like I'm looking at what we currently have on the Big 12, and they're all very intentional actions of violence.
But even a 16-year-old when they obtain their license doesn't get consent if they're aware of the motor vehicle law, such as DUI and so forth. They sign off on that form. So maybe we shouldn't be having anybody under 22 driving a car, I guess, if they're not fully developed until they're age 25. We got to use the argument both ways.
I mean, legally, if they're 16, they're not capable of signing a contract, so they're signing, but it doesn't.
They can void it as a kid. But I mean, if we're talking about implied consent when you're driving, then that's different. With the state. Right?
Again, it doesn't mean it cannot be charged as criminal, it simply means it doesn't start there.
So did y'all read the section to this or?
Of which? The
33.
1133.
It's a person that violates, but it's a misdemeanor. I don't know if they got the right. It's currently a misdemeanor.
If you're doing a GNO.
I was looking at 3B, maybe I was looking at the
Yeah, it should be B3.
B3, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is a prison not more than 15 years.
It could be B4 too. Maybe that's why they put B. You probably should still put, because 4 is the death. 3 is serious bodily injury. That's what that.
I would think 4A is more serious. 4A and B. If I was gonna do anything, I'd do 4A and B, that's a death.
But the intent or lack thereof, if the wording is still the same in both of them, caused by the operator's knowing violation. Or it's caused by the operator's knowing violation.
Yep. Let's come back to this.
I feel really okay about adding 19. The willful and malicious injury caused by explosives. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
What about fireworks?
Is it willful and malicious?
Just the neighbors.
Yeah. Blowing up mailbox.
But this is the willful and malicious injury caused by explosives.
I'm not sure that fireworks counts, but
I think I was just being a pain. But thank you.
Success.
Actually, Senator Sears has had his mailbox blown up, right?
No, I just baseball bat,
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
but you know,
Same with.
Oh, it actually looks like there's 3 things in
my good
here.
experience is when I get a check in the mail
Victim service.
from diversion for whoever did it.
So it looks like there's 3 parts of this. There's willful and malicious injuries. Then if you go down to VSA 1605, it's injuries caused by destructive devices, which I don't feel good about adding to the Big 12.
Yeah, the destructive device. What is a destructive device?
Right.
Oh, I guess, well, there's the definition. I should look at it.
It's
Uh,
probably over a firearm, so it's gotta be like explosives or.
maybe that's where injuries related to fireworks might fall in. Or, and then VSA 1608 is or injuries caused by explosives as defined. The first one, because of the willful and malicious, I feel okay about. The other 2, I have more pause.
No, no, injuries caused 1605 is person purposely and maliciously. Thank you. Uses a destructive device to injure a person or to damage or destroy property of another shall be in prison not more than 20 years or fined not more than 10,000 or both.
But the property damage piece, like if I blew up your mailbox, should it automatically start in criminal court?
No.
That's where like, it can go there if I willfully or maliciously injured a human. If I blew up your mailbox,
Right.
so the destructive device, did you notice that definition already?
I'm trying to find it.
So
That's
if it was-
1603.
If it was your house instead of your mailbox, that would be arson. So I'm trying to think if you blew up something less than somebody's house, the picnic table or their mailbox, I wouldn't want that to be 20 years. Although explosives, I wonder if something like an M8, which is a really big firecracker, but it's also kind of like a quarter of a stick of dynamite. I wonder how that would be categorized.
It does say explosive means dynamite or any explosive compound of which nitroglycerin forms a part, or fulminate in bulk or dry condition, for blasting caps, detonating fuses, or blasting powder. Does not include a firearm or ammunition or any components of ammunition.
Well, I can't load any of this. My computer doesn't work. But like I said, to me, there's 3 aspects here. The first one, of course, that should be a big 12. The second and third, I'm less convinced of, especially now knowing that they include destruction of property.
Why don't we just include the first one?
I'm good with that. our bill deals with 20, yes. Under sheriff's.
Yeah, let's get this. Our bill already covers some aggravated, some human traffic, not all, but
Okay.
Wait, so I didn't miss that. Which one? did you-
19, I think we would not.
Not the middle one, but the first and last one, okay? Was that where it was, or was it just the first?
I think just the first one is.
Okay. Gotcha.
But the first one includes property.
I don't think it does. I think it was only the second and third ones that did, but I'm not totally sure.
1601 is unlawfully destroys or injures a dwelling house, office,
Oh.
shop, or other building, or a
Yeah,
ship,
you're right.
vessel, or
So
a
now we're
dam
wrong.
or reservoir for storing water.
Okay, I'm game with leaving them all out. You're right.
She sounded surprised about this.
No, Senator Sears is regularly right.
Okay, so. for
13.
Which number are we on, right?
20.
20,
And we're planning to skip that.
Because the bill deals
Right.
with it.
So if we move on to 21, I don't think that should be
I
included.
don't think we should. You don't think, I don't think we should.
I agree with you. It should not be.
So is 20 in the other bill we're dealing with?
Is it?
It's in S4.
Yeah.
That's 4, okay.
Then I suggested we skip 22, 23, 24.
Yep.
Go to 25, which I don't know.
Isn't, oh, I wish if we updated the hate crime statutes, that's a modifier to an underlying existing crime, correct? Not a crime on its own?
Exactly.
25, 26. I don't know what 27 is. Intent to commit any preceding offenses.
So in application, if we included 25, would that mean that if, well, no, in application, how could you include 25? Because you would have to, I'm trying to wrap the brain around this, because it's a modifier to an underlying crime. If you included, it would mean that if it is determined to be hate motivated, it could be elevated, but you'd have to, the process would already be started.
Yeah, so if there's a disorderly conduct that originates in family court, but it's found out that it's a disorderly conduct because it's somebody trying to, or somebody targeting.
Somebody spraying
family.
swastikas
Yeah.
on a synagogue.
Then it would get elevated, or then it would, skip family court and start in criminal court. Right?
Yes. So it can be any underlying offense.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
So
I'd be fine with including it, by itself, it's not going, I don't think that it would, by itself, it wouldn't make sense because we don't have a standalone hate motivated crime statute, but, if you're fighting somebody else because of, for racist reasons, or you're vandalizing a place, spraying swastikas as you described, that's one crime that's being modified by the hate crime modifier, which can cause it to originate in criminal court.
But my understanding is that hate motivated is typically not on the charge. It's sort of explored through the process or on sentencing. So I don't even understand how it could be applied to raise it to automatically start in criminal court. Like that would be part of the process, would be determining was this hate motivated.
I think that it can start at the beginning. I've only used it once, and it was on the original citation, so I don't maybe I made a mistake, but
It is technically a penalty enhancer,
yeah,
but yes, you can charge it in the beginning as, if you think the facts warrant it, like, the situation you described or something similar. Officer feels like the facts warrant the hate motivated penalty answer, they can certainly charge it.
And then my concern comes in, not necessarily someone who's 17, 18, 19, but someone who's 14 and doesn't really know the impact of, because that's what they're surrounded by and just heartburn, honestly, 'cause
Well, I mean, the one way you could do this is to add it to 1455 2 and 3, which is the maximum penalty for the underlying crime is more than 1 year but less than 5, or the maximum penalty for the underlying crime is 5 years or more. The penalty for the underlying crime shall apply. However, the court shall consider the motivation of the defendant as a factor in sentencing. So you would immediately remove the hate crime was the underlying crime is the 1 year or less, which would probably be disorderly conduct, and that's, I don't know, but. Or you could say if only for felony level. But I don't know, I mean,
I don't know either.
I'm kind of following your lead here.
Yeah.
Understanding that this is
It's something that we should come back and revisit.
yeah, I
So we
think,
can-
but I do think there's justification if it's,
Mhm.
if the underlying penalty, we've divided it out on the enhanced penalty to if the underlying crime is a year or less.
Yeah, I definitely think it warrants coming back because I do see value in certain places. Now we're back to our favorite conspiracy statute.
Conspiracy,
This was read to us just the other day.
how many kids were convicted of conspiracy?
We don't see it on there.
It's not even on the list.
We didn't bother with it.
I don't think so.
I
They
made,
might have asked them for only violent offenses.
I made the argument in a previous bill that just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean we should assume it couldn't happen. And conspiracy, I'm assuming person guilty of conspiracy for the purpose that an offense listed in subsection C of this section be committed that the person agrees with one or more persons to commit or cause the commission of that offense. And at least 2 of the co-conspirators are persons who are neither law enforcement officials acting in official capacity nor persons acting in cooperation with law enforcement. No person shall be convicted of conspiracy unless a substantial overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy is alleged and proved to have been done by the defendant or by a co-conspirator other than law enforcement acting in an official capacity. Same thing. Speech alone may not constitute an overt act. And this section applies only to this conspiracy to commit or cause the commission of one or more of the following offenses: murder, first or second degree, arson, sexual exploitation of children, receiving stolen property, an offense involving the sale, delivery, manufacture, or cultivation of regulated drugs, relating to trafficking in cannabis, cocaine, or heroin, relating to the unlawful selling or dispensing of a depressant, stimulant, or narcotic other than fentanyl, heroin, or cocaine, relating to trafficking methamphetamine or fentanyl. I don't know. I think my brain may be simplified. I mean, and the penalty for conspiracy, I don't know, it's in a different part, hold on. The penalty is the same as that authorized for the crime that is the object of the conspiracy. So it's no different than.
Yeah. Well, the conspiracy would only, Eric, can you make the conspiracy is only applies to
Yes, doesn't have to be all those offenses.
Just those offenses
Right, that's how it
that are
reads.
big, well, for the purposes, I'm gonna still use the term Big 12.
That-
So the conspiracy only applies to those that we have.
Yeah, I'm bored with that.
I think it's a little unusual. I think that it's a great approach.
Just unusual.
No, that's what is that this conspiracy section only applies to the offenses that Senator Hofsky just read, which doesn't include most of the law. So
Right.
I'm not sure that a conspiracy to commit unless there's another statute, unless the conspiracy to commit a Big 12 offense that was not listed here wouldn't be a crime. That's bad.
Right. It wouldn't be,
It wouldn't even be a crime.
Right.
well, yeah, and so I think it's better to, whatever we end up with as the conspiracy or intent would only apply to those crimes that we've listed.
That cross are here and we've listed. That makes sense to me.
You know?
Yep.
I don't know if we can do that. I don't know why we can't.
So it, for example, it would apply to murder
Yeah,
because that's on this list and that other list. But it would not apply to receiving stolen property because
Right.
that's not on our list.
Not on the list.
That makes sense to me.
And do the same with attempts.
Mhm.
All right.
I remember that going through the attempt statute was attempt to break out of jail.
What are you doing in jail?
That's what he's breaking
Well,
jail right now.
He is breaking out of jail right now.
No, that was the example used in the attempt statute.
Yeah.
Went into that a couple of years ago. But yeah, if the conspiracy only was confined to those bills, I'm comfortable.
I would similarly be comfortable.
Are those laws?
I think it's only gonna be murder and arson.
Yeah, which is, I'm fine with that.
Well, attempts would be,
Right. Attempts would be any Big 12.
yeah,
Right. Sounds good.
a big 15 or big 20.
Yeah, I don't know what we've gotten to.
That's right.
Got 1, 2.
And then the you have the language yet for the agency. Services. Yeah, you don't have that yet, do we?
I have received it.
I haven't checked my email since the start of this meeting. We came back with the idea that conspiracy and attempts would only apply to the crimes that we add to the list. So
12 or so.
15 or whatever.
I got 28 now.
A violation of abuse prevention order or violation of the order against stalking or sexual assault. Is that not covered by some of the aggravated stalking, doesn't aggravated stalking or aggravated sexual assault include violation of an order not to do that?
I don't think so.
Feels redundant.
Aggravated stalking, the second, I believe covers the court orders and so on and so forth, yes.
So, yeah, just interesting, because it looks like we have that in 2 different places in statute.
Here's that.
And I think we added aggravated stalking, so I'd be fine with adding the second place where we
Yeah.
point to that.
Yeah, that is one of the aggravated stalking.
And I thought it was one of the aggravated, like, I think there's a couple in, oh no, it's aggravated sexual assault of a child. Never mind. Yeah, it looks like it's redundant.
Yeah, it's interesting that at least with respect to abuse prevention, I shouldn't say stalking. If you charge it as aggravated stalking on the basis of violating the order, it's a 5-year felony. But it's just, if you don't charge it that way, you just charge it as. Of the order.
Are you discovering that if you charge it differently, the penalties are different?
I thought so, but I'll backtrack on that, because maybe not.
Okay. What is 5138?
Well, the first offense of violating an abuse prevention order is a 1-year misdemeanor.
So probably not including that, right?
Yeah, it's a policy call. The first offense is 1-year misdemeanor, second offense, 3 years. Second or subsequent, I should say. So it's not effective until it becomes a unless you do.
So Senator Sherwood, what do you think? I think that putting a misdemeanor on the Big 12 would be,
No.
yeah. And then the other piece, the violation of stalking or sexual assault, I can't find it in statute personally.
Well, I think we're gonna invite the network and the Center for Crime Victim Services Friday morning to talk a little bit about some of these issues, so I better understand them.
That makes sense to me.
And in the meantime, I want to make sure we get this, all the information on youthful offender and transfer is done easily without compromising court time. I think the timeliness, if we can get rid of the ping pong, we fix the youthful offender system and the juvenile adult system.
Right, and where we're sort of landing on that, that was,
It's the same, it's, I
I
don't know how
suppose
to,
that
I can describe it, but I don't know how to write it.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're in family court, you're in criminal court, and the case comes up, and it's a juvenile. And everybody agrees, or at least somebody thinks it's a good idea to move it to youthful offender or juvenile, family division. You close the curtain on the wall, tell everybody to get out, except those that need to be there, and then you are in family court, and you don't have to wait 2 months to schedule a hearing in family court.
Right.
Can we write that? That's the problem. And it's why I don't think some cases get transferred down, because it's complex. By the time you get there, the kid probably forgot what he did, you know? It's like my dog, I can yell at him for grabbing the eggs lunch on Sunday. She came out, he ate my lunch. It's a bad dog, but after a while, he doesn't remember why he was a bad dog. His nose is smoked.
I sort of think that in a way, that's kind of what martial language is.
Well, that's what I want to make sure that we've done, is if we accomplish nothing else on that particular area, we're able to do that without making it so damn complex.
And also, if you expand, it sounds like you are, however, you're not sure exactly where you went, which offenses you add to the big 12 or whatever, those offenses will also get rid of the payment. Because when a big 12 offense can be direct filed as the youthful offender. So those offenses won't be subject.
Turns out you have to go to meetings.
Okay.
But could you do 1:30?
I'm supposed to be in House Judiciary.
Okay, how about,
Would you like me to go